Episode 105. This week we cover Measure of a Man. This one, arguably the best episode season 2 had. One of the best shows of any season. In this one, we start off with Data learning to play poker in Commander Riker's quarters. He's got Worf and LaForge and Mr. O'Brien all in his quarters are playing poker. Data has studied the game, but then he realizes he doesn't fully understand the game when he's practically playing it. Then we got over to a star base where the Enterprise is orbiting. Captain Picard's in this bar. In walks this woman, Captain Laveau. And Picard runs over and he obviously knows her. They never get too deep into the details, but the gist of it is they had known each other years earlier, and then Laveau was the JAG officer who prosecuted Picard when the Stargazer was lost, which was standard practice, but Picard blamed her for being too aggressive in trying to get his court-martialed. So they had a falling out, hadn't seen each other in years, but now they're in the same star base, coincidentally, and Captain Laveau explains she's set up this new office there and she wants to institute new law. She's excited, but she's got no personnel. It's just her. It's a skeleton crew of a star base anyway. And then Admiral walks in, tells Captain Picard he wants a tour of the Enterprise, so they take the Admiral on a tour. He's got a commander with him named Bruce Maddox, and then at the end of the tour, the Admiral says, "Oh yeah, Bruce Maddox is here to study your androids. Let him do what he wants." And he just walks off the bridge, and they're like, "Well, what do you want to do with Data?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to take him apart and figure out how to build a new one." And Data didn't like that very much because he knew Bruce Maddox from years and years before, and he didn't trust Bruce Maddox to take him apart, so he was uncomfortable with it. Picard wasn't comfortable with it, so Bruce Maddox says, "I figured that might be the case, so here's transfer orders. He's under my command, and I'm going to order him to let me rip him apart and figure out how to build a new one." Data didn't like that very well, so when Data goes to visit Picard in his ready room, Picard's like, "Well, Starfleet says it's okay, so what can you do? You'll be fine." And Data makes the analogy, well, Commander LaForge's eyes are far superior than any living being's eyes, but it's not required that everyone get replacement eyes, so their eyes are superior, right? And Picard's like, "Oh, we got a point there," and he kicks Data out, and then he studies the transfer order regulations. Then he goes to see Laveau and he tells her he needs her help, and they're trying to transfer Data and do experiments on him, and he wants it stopped, and she's not taking him seriously at all until he explodes in anger, and then she suggests Data resign from Starfleet. So we go back to the ship, and Data's packing his bags. He's got a book Picard gave him. He's got the hologram of Yar's funeral speech, few other things. Maddox just burst into his corner, started reading his book, and Data's like, "I thought it was customary to ask permission before entering." Maddox just blows him off, and he's all excited. He's going to learn how to build a fleet of Datas. Every ship will have multiple androids that can go into the dangerous situations. Data doesn't like it. He's telling Maddox he's resigned his commission. He can't order him around. Maddox is claiming the Data's property. We go to a real quick going away party where LaForge is off in the corner, all mopey, and Data tells him that it's something he has to do, and he doesn't like the situation either, but it's the best solution they had. But then they go find out that Maddox had got an injunction, Starfleet's ordering Data to carry on with the transfer. They're claiming his property. Picard and Riker go to Laveau, and she says that the only situation that would resolve it is if they have arbitration. She's the only person in her office except a scared ensign, but they go ahead with it. Riker has to prosecute, and LeBeau says if he doesn't prosecute Data to his best ability, then she'll just throw the case out and give Data over to Maddox. Picard actually tells Data he can have anyone he wants to defend him, even though Picard was ordered to defend, but Riker didn't get the same option of declining, which was never explained. But they get into the trial. Riker presents this pretty compelling argument that Data is just a machine that can be turned off and on, and he's property of Starfleet, not actually a regular officer of Starfleet, even though Riker didn't believe any of this. And Picard goes back to the ship all depressed because he almost believed Riker. But then Guinan makes a comparison of what Starfleet's doing to Data with slavery, and it snapped into Picard. That analogy would work, so he goes back down, resumes the trial, and he basically sells the hearing on Data's not properties of individual being. He's just a unique being, and he says, can they prove that Data's more sentient than Picard, and they both have the same qualifications. When Maddox tries to lay out what the qualifications are for sentient beings, they find out Data had been intimate with Lieutenant Yar before her death. That shocked everyone. They're like, wow, if he's doing that, maybe he's sentient after all. They rule in favor of Data, of course. He goes and tells Maddox that when he's ready and he's done more research and Data feels confident in his abilities, maybe they'll do some work together. But he'd keep abreast of what Maddox was doing as far as research. And Riker goes and he's pouting when Data finds him in the observation lounge, and Data's like, well, if you didn't try to prosecute me, they would have ruled against me, and I'd be on my way to be dismantled, right? And Riker's like, yeah, that's a good point. And they walk off to the celebration party after that. That was basically Measure of a Man. Some interesting notes in this one. Very little of the regulars were used. LaForge had a little bit to do in the very beginning, and in that one scene. Almost nothing from Worf, Troy, or Dr. Pulaski. It is mainly Data, Riker, and Picard. Riker even wasn't heavily prominent in it. Clyde Matsu was the Admiral. He's been in every television show you can think of in the 80s and 90s, usually playing a military guy or a country official from some Asian country. He was the Admiral in that. And Bruce Maddox had another appearance later in the series. They also revolved Data's Day around correspondence with Maddox, and then years and years and years later, the first season of Picard was based heavily on the furthering works of Bruce Maddox, and Maddox played a major role in that show, even though the new actor that portrayed Maddox wasn't in it for very much on screen. His character was a central focus of the show. So this was a vital show in Next Generation history. They would touch on a similar theme in other series with the holographic doctor and other android life forms. Well, pivotal episode, good episode, and that's pretty much 105.